When you're an untrained athlete, you have so much potential to learn that movement and grow faster because it's untrained. So something that's untrained, you start training it, the better you get at it, the more experience, the faster you start to climb. And then once you hit that certain spot to where you're starting to plateau at a certain exercise or in your training, that's when you need to switch it up and get a new stimulus in there. So untrained athletes will grow rapidly, but then they will start to teeter off, and that's when you have to be a coach and coach with your eye.
It is the Lane United legend, Armando Field.
Welcome to FC Game Changer. We got game. The football club that will change your game.
Welcome back, everyone, to the FC Game Changer show. And today, Cody Williams is here with us. He's a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Oregon, and he's coached high school and college athletes across the country. Now, his primary focus is with the University of Oregon football team. Cody, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and welcome to the show.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we did a little research on you just to see your background and stuff. But we'd like to hear from you. Tell us, how did you enter the strength and conditioning field, and why?
I'm from Iowa, born and raised. As a young kid, I kind of enjoyed just going to the weight room. My dad took me with my older brother and some of his friends. So kind of grew a love for that. And I knew that maybe I wasn't going to make it as a pro. I knew that at an early age, I probably wasn't going to make it as a pro. And I knew I wanted to stay in the sports field. So I knew that there was an avenue. It was either coaching or like positional coaching or doing like strength conditioning stuff. And I knew that there was a major or like a structured class towards that at some of the schools that I went to. So at a young age, I kind of knew that I was going to go into it, and then I just got the ball rolling with some internships, and I really enjoyed it, just being with football or being with other sports. And so I just went with that avenue, and it never changed. My love for the game or love for training never wavered. It was just always, I want to train athletes, I want to make them better, I want to see them progress, whether it was coaching them in a position or doing it through the weight room. I was a middle school coach for a little bit, and I would juggle that also with the training in the morning with the high school. So I enjoyed that, and it never stopped, and it hasn't yet, so I'm still doing it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. And what's your favorite aspect of strength and conditioning? Do you have one thing that you're like, that is the reason why? Because you probably did strength and conditioning training yourself back then.
Yeah.
Then maybe there was something that you liked back then. What was it?
As an athlete, for me, it was just being around my teammates and seeing them and grinding and trying to meet a goal. I think that was the biggest thing as an athlete, but as a coach, it was just watching these kids get better. You know, training, it's a long process, and you have to be patient with it, and over that amount of time in the off season, you can see a lot of gains being made, whether it's on the field or in the weight room. And for me, that's what was so fun, and that's what was addicting, was just watching some of these kids get better and doing things that they never thought that they could do and accomplishing goals that they never thought they could reach. And so that part was easily the best for me. Just being able to celebrate some like moral victories or anything like that with the kids, it's always been so fun for me.
You mentioned something that, off season, because I feel like young athletes, they focus too much in season.
Right.
But they forget about, where the gains are made is probably during the off season.
Right.
What could you tell them in terms of, hey, focus on your off season and do the things here instead of waiting to get ready?
Well,
in season.
Well, the off season is the longest part, right? Like your season really doesn't go over 4 or 5 months. So the biggest part is the off season, right? And that's where you work on your areas of opportunity. What am I not good at? What do I know I'm good at? And kind of just bridging the gap to making sure you're a well-rounded athlete. If you're not a good rotational athlete, maybe you should work on that during the off season. Just finding things that you're not good at.
You're not good at.
Yeah,
like
right.
you pay attention during the season, see the things that you're failed at during the off season? You work on that.
Yeah, like right now, some of it's like speed training. Some of these kids, they don't get enough of it, or they don't get enough good training of it. So it's kind of educating them and being like, hey, this is how you run, this is what running technique is, and if you get better at the technique, in turn you'll, like theoretically, you'll get better at the skill, right? And so for field-based athletes that have 120 yards, it's important to either be good at running or just gain a little bit of speed in the off season, just to have an advantage on yourself, or just generally speaking on the off season, there should be something that you go into the off season as a goal. Either, hey, I want to put on more muscle mass, I want to lose body fat, like get my body comp right, or just basic training, just knowing that I'm not where I'm at and I would like to be at a certain level, and to get there I have to do these steps in order to reach that goal. So just honing in on what you really need in the off season. You get a lot of change of direction running in the season. Well, what can I work on to make myself better at the areas that
That's
I'm
a
not?
good point, because in season they might be doing a lot of the same things over and over.
Right.
And they don't get to work too much on the things that they need to, and the off season is a good opportunity for them to do that.
And you can slow it down. Like in the season, it's kind of rushed because you only have so much time, or you don't have enough practices to really like slow things down in practice. Because once you get so far in the season, it's more so you're just getting live reps. You're not really working on the basics anymore because you're so far along in the season that you start cutting down the practice time. So what do you cut out? You cut out some of those little skill and drill things that you don't need to do anymore that you did for the first 6 to 8 weeks in preseason. So stuff like that.
Yeah, so you as a coach, having all the experience that you have with high school, college athletes now at the University of Oregon, myself back in those days, I thought that I knew a lot more than the coach did.
Right. Right.
I did work during the off season, but not as much as I should have. I would get to season, I would think that I was on top of my game, but then you'd see the people that actually work as hard as they could during the off season. So when they get to season, they're ready, flying. Can you spot the athletes who did the work during the off season versus the ones who didn't?
I think it's pretty noticeable. You could tell the ones that have done at least something versus the ones that have done nothing. Like if you've done a little bit of something, you're an athlete, you can kind of recover well, if you've been trained good enough. But the kids that do the bare minimum or nothing, you can really tell. It either shows up like late in a practice where your conditioning is not there, so you're sluggish, like your attention to details aren't there. Little things like that. It's really not like you get there and they're not good at the warm-up. Everyone's good at a warm-up, and they're going to be, they're at least going to have some energy for the warm-up or just the beginning of practice. It really shows up at the back half. Like, can you keep your form on stuff? Can you keep your technique? Can you listen to details? Stuff like that. And that shows up through your training, I think. Training has a lot of mental aspect to it, but it can also prepare you for what the demands of a practice is. So if you train proper, practice is going to be at least a little bit easier. Or you feel like, hey, I'm in a good spot. Practice isn't going to be too hard, but it is going to, it's going to bust me. You can't really prepare for the demands of a game or practice per se, because practice may be 2.5 hours, 3 hours, where your training is never going to be that, because you would just do too much.
That makes sense.
Right? If you try and tell your athletes you need to prepare for practice, well, what do I need to prepare for? Do I need to prepare for the running volume, or do I just need to prepare for the duration I'm going to stand on my feet? And that's another aspect you have to think about. Like, how long are your practices, and how long are the kids staying on their feet? And that takes a factor into it, because we can only train for two hours a day with the kids, and it goes towards our care hours. Well, we'll practice longer than that, but we can't be out on the field running them for 2 hours, because we have to lift. But also, you can't have them out there running for 2 hours, because you would overdo it. You would blow them up. Like, you would get too much running volume, too many XLs and decels, and their player load would just be too high. So then you just kind of screw them for the rest of the week, or you screw them and they can't recover well enough. So then the next week is kind of a washed week. You're like, oh, well, we're trying to get them back up and we don't want to dig them into a hole deeper. So you have to balance that, and it's hard. And then, you know, the demands of practice are so high that the training better aid you in that. It can never like take away from what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So if you go too long, then you're taking away and you're actually hurting them at that point.
And that correlates to injury as well, right?
Exactly. Overuse is a bad thing, and not doing enough is a bad. So there's a balance there. You know, some kids, they'll come to your training, they'll give you 100% because they're good athletes, and that's what they want to do. But then they'll go do more. It's like, okay,
you have to pace them.
When is enough? And sometimes, you know, less is more.
Less is more
in that aspect, especially when it comes to training or lifting or running. You know, you don't want to go out and run 8 miles a day because you're just going to deteriorate your body. And are you doing it at a steady state? Are you doing all 8 miles at once? Or are we like breaking it up and making it an actual workout?
That must be hard for some athletes, right? They're ones that's like go.
Yeah.
I want to be better.
For sure. Especially when their parents put them into other things like club, and they have like side.
So it's not just that.
Yeah, it's not just that. Like you can go all year playing club and then come to the fall and play for your high school team, and that means that you've been playing all year round and you haven't given your body any rest, any recovery. And then at that point, like if you have practices all the time and then tournaments on the weekends, where are you getting recovery? Or where are you getting some sort of strength training so that way you're more resilient towards injuries and stuff like that? So that's just another part of it that you have to think about when you're thinking about progressing and getting better and making sure you get to your season healthy.
Right. So how do you incorporate then injury prevention strategies and technique to your strength training programs?
I think that in the back of your head, you got to understand that everything that you do is technically injury prevention. Like we squat to make our knees healthy, right? We use full range of motion I stress, and what I learned at grad school is that if you go below parallel, you will activate more muscles, in turn using more muscles. Okay, so if you use a higher range of motion, you'll use more muscles. So then more activated, more used, in turn it can help with knee health. That's at least what we were telling our athletes, and it worked. In 7 years that my head strength coach was there, in the whole athletic department, he had 8 ACLs. You know,
and that's for how many athletes?
Amongst 350 athletes.
True,
you know? So that's a really good ratio. And there's some things that we did there that we don't do at Oregon. And there's a lot of things at Oregon that we didn't do there. But it's just all about managing the athletes and making sure that they're healthy and not overtraining them. And that's a balance, you know. There's a lot of things that you can put into the program that are technically injury prevention, like using unilateral movements, one arm, one leg, stuff like that. That's injury prevention to me. And if you don't put that in your program, or at least think about that in your program, then you're doing your kids a disservice. Right. Because lifting in general should be injury prevention, but the goal is to make them stronger or make them more explosive and transfer it to sport. Mm-hmm. But the whole of it is to make sure your athletes are safe.
Because if they're safe, they will play longer. They'll perform better. Mm-hmm.
They'll trust you more. And it buys buy-in. Like, okay.
It goes even high mindset-wise,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
you have to get that athlete to buy into what you're doing and for them to give 100% effort, you know? And if it's not there, they're not going to do it. And they're not going to put their full into it. And you see that all the time. Coaches may not, you know, explain why we do stuff. And then they're kind of left in the dark, like, okay, well, why do we do this movement? And what's the purpose of it? And there's kids out there that want to know that before they even dive into something.
Which is good, though.
It is, and that's what I need. I need kids that ask questions and want to know why, because one, it also makes me a better coach, because I have to reverberate, I have to teach them, and that's one of the better things about being a coach is like learning, but also teaching. No, that's a great point. It's very big.
That's a great point.
I think that's
the trust aspect as well that I didn't even think about it. Yeah, because that's going to improve not just the physical aspect of the athlete, but just the mental part, which is huge.
Sports are all mental. Yeah. You know, like 80% of it is mental. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to a situation?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. For kids, let's say high schoolers, mm-hmm. they're very interested in trying to start a strength training program, but they just don't know how,
Right.
they don't know what resource they should be looking for. What are some advices that you could be giving them so they can at least start somewhere?
Right, just have a good foundation.
Yeah.
For me, it's an accumulation of volume. So general prep is gonna have either a lot of volume or a lot of time based into it, and it's general, right? Throwing a med ball, doing ropes, stuff like that. In the beginning of your off season, you're always gonna start with something that is general to prep them for what is about to happen. So for a younger athlete, I would say get in the weight room and do a lot of movements that are well-rounded, like a vertical push, vertical pull, okay? Things that are two and the same. So like,
Can you break them down? Give us like 2 or 3 vertical push.
yeah, so like a vertical push would be anything overhead. So it'd be a push press, military press, something like that. Something that's gonna use a lot of muscles, okay? 2 joint exercises that like you're gonna extend through the elbow and shoulder. So like a vertical press uses a lot of muscles. So then you don't have to go back and do a lot more pressing because you already did a good press with a lot of muscles involved. So you just need it well-rounded. So like for us, it's if you're an Olympic-based program or if you use Olympic movements, you start out with an Olympic movement and then you go to a squat or a press or a hinge and then make sure you get some rowing in there, some rotation, some core, just being well-rounded. Like an athlete shouldn't go into the gym and say, oh, I'm gonna hit legs today.
I see what you're saying.
Right,
Just focusing on one piece.
Right. If you're going in there to focus on one piece, it's more of like a bodybuilding thing because you're gonna just go up there. You're gonna go there and like blow up your leg.
You're getting a workout.
Right. You're getting a workout, but training tells me what I need to get. Right. Like I'm training for this sport, so I need to hit these certain lifts.
That's good.
Right. So don't go in the gym thinking I'm gonna hit chest and shoulders today. No. Like. Go in the gym, tell yourself, I'm gonna hit a pull, a push, a squat, an ab today. That way you know it's well-rounded in what you hit, not just saying like, oh, I've hit 3 leg movements today. Well, okay, well you got practice tomorrow or you got a run session tomorrow, so what did you just do to your legs? You exhausted them and now you're not gonna be worth a crap tomorrow.
That's good for them to hear.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
watch as well.
I think you need to know what you're doing and what the recovery process is. Because after every lift, you're supposed to have 24 to 48 hours of rest, depending on what you did, right? So that's valuable.
Yeah, because the thing is they watch, certain sources on the internet, and they will see this guy telling them to do this single leg balance, throwing the ball up in the air, and they think it's,
right.
That's what I should be doing. But most of the times what I'm hearing you saying is the foundational, simple things that we know for many, many years that it actually works.
Yes.
Squat.
Right.
A hinge, push, pull.
Yep.
Things like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Especially with someone that has a training age that's less than 2 years. You don't need a lot of that fancy stuff. You need the foundation,
That's
right?
good.
And the thing that I always tell my kids is, what are you trying to build your house on? If you were to build a house, and you started by building that foundation with toothpicks, and then you tried to build 2 levels on top of it, you're gonna fall once you get to the top, right? You need to make sure you have a strong, solid foundation that's gonna last for a long time. Houses are built to last for 100 years. That's what you wanna do, right?
That's
you wanna
good.
build a house. We've heard Coach Lanning say that a lot, like if you're gonna build a mansion, it takes 1 brick at a time, right?
Takes time.
Yeah, takes time. You gotta be patient towards it. And once you get the base building, or the foundational strength or whatever it is down, you can move on to more complex things. But if you haven't built that foundation, you have to keep coming back and hitting things that you missed. Like, oh, if you don't squat to depth, well now we're so far in the off season, I feel like I have to come back and be like, well, now we have to break down your squat or we have to do it the next year. So if we can eliminate some of those things that are gonna show up in year 2, that's what you want to do, right? So that way when you come back in year 2, you can hit the ground running. You know what you need to do. The standard is set. You don't have much time coaching. You're more so leading them to where we're trying to go next. Right. And you want to get to that point to where you are coaching in the weight room, but you're not coaching them on technique. You're coaching them on like, oh, I think you should go up a little bit more, or let's back it off today. Hey, how do you feel? Practice was tough. What are you seeing? Like, do you feel good? Can you hit this weight? No? Okay, let's takes them off. So it's knowing what to do, when to do, and that base building is huge.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great point. It's good for them to listen to that stuff too, because some of them might get overwhelmed with the amount of information in there. But it's like no. It's the simple things.
Yeah,
do the simple
very
things.
Simple.
Yeah, and off camera you mentioned you're working with a women's soccer team in Springfield. Tell me if you see a difference between, and what are challenges that you see when you're working with, a men's soccer team, young athletes versus women's team at high school level?
There's not too much of a difference, honestly, when it comes to the weight room. Everyone almost needs the same stuff, basic strength, basic foundation, but sometimes the women are a little bit more susceptible to doing things because sometimes they just don't need to be told why. They listen a little bit better. They understand basic technique sometimes a little bit better because they also don't want to hurt themselves. Sometimes younger men will go in there and try and ego lift, way too much weight on the bar, stuff like that. Women are a little bit more conservative. They'll be like, "Are you sure you want me to put on that weight?" And it's like, then you just build confidence with them. Yeah, I think you're ready for that. Why not? Like, you showed me you can do it on the last set. Why not try and go up a little bit? I thought that was easy, stuff like that. And then once they gain that confidence, it's super easy to keep pushing them. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of really, really good female athletes that, no's not an option, and you would never see that working just with male sports. That's why I enjoy what I've done in the road that I've came from, because I've worked with very good female athletes and they've taught me a lot of just about coaching, and they can teach you a lot. And so being well-rounded as a coach is really good too, because you need to learn how to talk to females and males. Like, it is different. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can get on a male a lot harder than you can get on a female, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But you need to be able to be a good coach and know where you are with that person, know the relationship, and know what you need to say to them at that time.
Yeah, and that relationship with the athlete as well is big. It's big. Going back to the trust as well, it's that same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't, what's that one saying? They don't know how much you care until they figure it out, or something like that. So, or they don't know how much you care until you prove it to them or something. Something along that line. So until you start proving that you care about them and what's going on with them, they're not going to show you that trust. And when you bridge that gap, it's a really fun time, because you can see a lot of progress at that point. But they're bought in. Until you get to that point, you're going to struggle with trying to get them to do certain things, because they're very apprehensive about doing a certain movement because it may look weird, or they don't want to look weird in front of their friends. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing too. But
especially at that age.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've had girls that come in and they're like, "Oh, I really don't like that girl." It's like, okay, but we can be cordial enough to make sure that we get our training done and that it doesn't affect us. Yes, okay, then we can have a good day, and making sure that they feel like, hey, I may not like this person here, but it's not going to affect the way that I train. So building that trust too, it's very important.
Mm-hmm. Going towards the progress and performance, we've been talking a lot about this. What are some methods that you have to track the athlete's performance, progress and performance?
I'll use a card. So I'll give all my athletes normally a card, like a 4-week card, and they will have to write their weights on it. That's how I track that. It's the simplest way, because I can track everything. Every single exercise that we do, it's super easy to track, and that way you know what weight you need to do for next week. Mm-hmm. I'm not the type of guy to just write the workout on the whiteboard and say, here we go. Now, granted, I know that every kid's gonna be different day to day, week to week, and I can't expect them to go up 5 pounds every single time they come in. Right. But if I can get it the majority of the time, then I'm winning. But the easiest way for me is to have a card and track it and be like, all right, where were you this week? Where were you last week? But it also plays into that mental aspect. If they see in 4 weeks how much weight they've gained, then they're more susceptible to doing it and seeing it. And so they have to see that growth. Yeah, they have to see that growth in order to come. And the number one thing for getting kids back in the door is enjoyment. Did they enjoy it? If they didn't, they're not coming back. So I have to make sure it's enjoyable, but also that they see the progress firsthand. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's important. Other ways you can track it, for speed, it's like timing your 10s, timing your 20s, stuff like that, timing, your tempo runs, or just anything on the field that you can time or test, like their jump, anything like that, anything that is testable that they can see progress in, you really want to show them, and you don't want to leave that out. Now for me, it's kind of hard, like at a school that doesn't have very many gadgets, or just they don't have as much as everyone else. You kind of have to figure out a way to show them. Like the cards for me is the best way right now to see in the weight room. Now they kind of understand that because I work with the football team, I do have like good experience, so they kind of understand that. And but also me being around them for a year and a half, they have that trust. So if I take them onto the field and we don't test anything, it's fine. They know that the stuff that I'm trying to give them is well thought out, and I'm not there to hurt them, or I'm not there to kill them. Like, and I'll tell them, like, hey, if today's gonna be a hard day, I'm gonna let you know, up front. That way you can either get your mind ready, or I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to go out there and be like, okay, we got 21 10s. Like, no, I would let you know beforehand. But also we're gonna make sure that we progress to that number. That way we're not just going out and doing 21 10s, and the next time we do 110s, I have 0 girls. So you got to make sure that's a balance too.
So you're working with a college men's soccer team, right? But you also work University of Oregon football team. Is there any difference in the both strength training programs for those athletes? Because they're two different sports, but they're also change of direction sports. Is there any difference in that?
There should be, right? Because of the demands of the game. Football is a physical game. You have to be strong. You have to have, certain body mass to take on those hits at all times, and
that doesn't happen in soccer as often.
In football, there's so many different bodies. Like you have big linemen, but you have really little skill guys. In soccer, the height of the players really just changed. The body weight is normally around the same depending on the height.
Depending on the position
so
too,
all the players on the soccer field are relatively the same size. So, but also it's not as physical as football, right? The demands of the game are very different. You're running longer in soccer. You don't get as much rest in soccer as you would a football game. So the demands of the game are different. So you have to train a little bit different. Now, the aspect of lifting is always lifting.
If you exercise will be the same.
If you go in the weight room and lift and become very strong, that doesn't mean that you got better at your sport. It just means that you might be more resilient towards injuries if you did it right. Correct? So, and if you're doing the right training for what you're trying to accomplish. So, yeah, it should be different, but it all depends on where you're at in the off season and what you're trying to accomplish. Like, I'm not gonna have my soccer guys doing a lot of compound movements. I would probably hit 2 major movements, like a squat and a press or something, or a squat and a posterior chain exercise, or something like that. And then we'll get into more supplemental exercises that aid in like rotation, or something that they don't hit on the field, or really any injury prevention you could put down at the bottom of that. Whereas like a football lift is more of a grind or a grit, and you're getting in there and you're moving a lot of heavy weight and you're trying to do it for either fast or a lot of reps or something like that. So the aspects of training can be very similar, but what you're trying to accomplish and what the demands of the game is going to make the training session a little bit different. And as it should be. I mean, I don't necessarily need my soccer guys to squat 400 pounds. It's not in their game. They don't have to move massive dudes, and they don't have to like. It's not a combat sport, right? And so I don't have to train you to get ready to move a physical dude, or
And in the football training sessions, you're seeing those guys lift a lot of weight, right?
Heavy weight, right? And I just don't need my soccer guys to do that. It's not what the game demands from them. So yes, we will hit basic fundamentals for them, but make it so it's not so, I wouldn't say tough, but intense. Like it just doesn't need to be as intense as some football training.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Let's say the exercises are pretty much the same exercises, But what changes the most would be the amount of repetitions and the weights that's on the barbell.
At times, for sure, because like at the beginning of the off season, you want to like recondition your players, your athletes, right? Put mass on them if they lost some mass during the season, get them healthy wherever they were hurt, stuff like that. So you may do it by volume, you may do it by tempo, but then once you get closer to the season, you're priming them to move heavyweight fast or lightweight really fast, or stuff like that. So you're priming them to transfer that all to sports. So if your sport is very explosive, just like most sports are, you need to be doing more explosive movements and more explosive stuff on the field, running, jumping, throwing med balls, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're not going to do that at the beginning of the off season because their bodies aren't trained to do that. And it's just like
progression.
Yeah, it's a progression. Mm-hmm. There's little steps you have to take in order to get to that position and prime them for the season. Because early in the off season, you're the furthest away from sport. So you have plenty of time. So that means that make sure you take your time to regenerate your body and make sure it's recovered. So that way, when we do move into things that are more complex, we don't have any drawbacks. And we're on the field and we're moving and we're getting better pretty much. And making sure that when you get to that June, July phase before fall, it's
ready to go.
Yeah, you just hit the ground running when you get into preseason. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit off camera on athletes that they're starting to do their strength training program, how fast the development is versus a more mature athlete. Right. Why is that?
Experience and just what it is, because you have so much room for growth when you don't have any experience doing it. But when you've gotten to the point to where your training age is above 4 or 5 years, then the increments of what you go up and what you see growth in are so minimal, because you're getting to that ceiling of what your athleticism is or your genetics, whatever they give you, you know what I'm saying? So someone that's been in the weight room for a long time, a new PR of 10 to 15 pounds is very, very big, right? It's awesome. It's like, it took us 4 weeks to get 10 pounds of growth. And when you're an untrained athlete, you have so much potential to learn that movement and grow faster because it's untrained. Mm-hmm. So something that's untrained, and you start training it, the better you get at it, the more experience, the faster you start to climb. And then once you hit that certain spot to where you're starting to plateau at a certain exercise or in your training, that's when you need to switch it up and get a new stimulus in there. So untrained athletes will grow rapidly, but then they will start to teeter off, and that's when you have to be a coach and coach with your eye and be like, okay, we need to change this around because they're starting to get stagnant and stuff like that. So it's being able to periodize and make sure that you have a plan in place when they get to that point. Yeah. But every athlete is different. Some athletes may take 6 months to get to that point. Some athletes may only take 3, you know what I'm saying? It just depends on how well they progress, right, and how fast.
Yeah, and I think most of the young athletes, they don't know that.
Right.
They think it's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym, it takes too long. No, the beginning of your, journey on strength training, you go fairly fast.
Yes, exactly.
Just go and start it.
And that's when
start somewhere.
That's when you gain the most confidence. And the hardest part is when you're 3 to 4 years into it, or 4 to 5 years into it, and you don't see a lot of growth. And you really have to be like, it's okay. I am strong, depending on what your body weight is and what your relative strength is. I am strong. I don't really have to worry about gaining 20 more pounds on my back squat, because the risk to reward there just isn't the same.
Yeah.
The reward wouldn't be the same gaining 10 pounds for someone that, squats 2 times his body weight compared to someone that doesn't even squat 1 times their body weight. The reward is higher for the person that doesn't squat their body weight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's, make it a goal.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to have a goal in mind, especially when you go into training, that's for sure.
Right. So let's say there's someone watching us right now, listening, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to start this now. But they don't have access to, a trainer, a coach. Right. They just, they have access to a gym. What are like basic, we've talked about the basic things, but what are basic things, but that's not going to cause them the risk of getting injured because no one is watching them.
Right.
What are things that they can do from the get-go?
If you're going to go to a gym and you're kind of by yourself, structure it in a way that you start with the most muscles used first, right? The most fatiguing stuff needs to be at your freshest state. So like if you were going to go in there and clean, it needs to start first. One, because it's explosive, like you want to be at your freshest state to do it your best. Something that's going to have the most technique needs to be at the beginning of the workout.
You say that because once they're fatigued, risky.
Yeah, it's very risky there. And it's like if you start out with single joint exercises, like you start out with curls or leg extensions, stuff like that, and then you work down into like a squat, you just pre-fatigued your muscles. So now maybe either you're not going to hit the weight that you wanted, or your technique is going to bust earlier in the sets.
And that's injury waiting to happen.
Yeah, and if you're doing complex movements like that later in the lift, it is a very big risk. So you want to start with those. That way you're at your freshest state and you get the most out of it, right? And then as your workout goes on, you can start moving into single joint exercises. Something that is like if you have a bad shoulder, you want to work shoulder raises or just work that shoulder in general later in the workout. So because it isn't that complex. Like it's more simple. Like it could just be a lat pull down, right, with one arm, and that's very simple. It doesn't take a lot. It's not a lot of technique. You don't need a lot of coaching on that. Whereas like if I was coaching you on a clean or a squat or a press or a row, something like that, something that needs coaching, you would want to do that right away, where your attention to detail is very fresh, right? And so if you go into a gym, you want to hit one of pretty much all 5 basic movements, right? And then you just depend on what the emphasis of the day is. So if today my emphasis is a squat, the first thing I'm gonna do is squat. Mm-hmm. If on Wednesday it's a bench, I'm gonna bench. If on Friday it's a clean, the first thing I'm gonna do is clean. So whatever the emphasis of that day is, you wanna start with it, right? Because that is the most important. That's what you're trying to get out of that day.
Yeah, that's great for them. Even for myself, as you're talking right now, I'm like, do I need to change my program right now? Right. That's good to know.
And it's always good to like reevaluate. Like everything that I do, I evaluate it, right? Because what I put on paper isn't perfect, and I don't expect it to be. And I expect to get feedback from my players to tell me what they do and don't like, And giving them that ownership builds trust, right? Because if they say, I really don't like this movement, and we can have a grown conversation about it, then we can make a change. Or I can help you be like, okay, now I understand why I do it. I like it, let's do it more, or whatever, but you need to give them that opportunity to take ownership in the program, because it just helps everyone, really. Right. And communicating makes it so much easier. That's how you're gonna learn. Like, I learn more from these kids than they probably learn from me, just in the sense of teaching me how to coach.
That's super cool. Mm-hmm. That's super cool.
And that's why I get into it too.
But you know what? Like, it's not every coach that's like that.
Right.
A lot of coaches, they don't have the open-minded that you do in terms of like receiving the feedback and learning from the athletes as well. It's whatever I say is right, go do it.
But you see those coaches struggle at times.
True.
Right? And especially if they don't have the players to their standard, right? Like good coaches sometimes get away, or let's say good coaches with that mentality sometimes get away with it because they have good athletes to back it up, and they can just do whatever they ask, at a high level. Whereas like if you go to a school that doesn't have those type of athletes and you come in with that same mentality, it doesn't gel as well. Like you're not gonna get from the athletes what you want to see, and being stubborn like that can really halt your career, because there's not one way to do everything, right? And so when it comes to that, and you think that there is, then you're going to be in trouble because you don't know where to go when maybe something doesn't work.
That's so true, and also everyone is different.
Yeah.
Every athlete is different. Some stuff that you may be telling an athlete, you might have to tell
generation to generation too.
Exactly.
Like you see a huge change just from the generations of kids coming through and athletes coming through. So like, you better be able to change.
Change with them and learn.
Velocity-based training has been a huge thing in the last 5 to 8 years, you know, and it wasn't in 2000s because we didn't have the technology. So like, if you don't grow with the times and learn how to use some of this stuff, then you're going to be left behind, you know?
Yeah. Cody, what are strategies, you know, that you use to motivate and keep these kids, you know, focused during training?
Depends on the athlete, right? It depends on your relationship with the athlete as well, because I can't say certain things to offensive guys that I say to defensive guys, because it's the mentality of the kids that are out there, but two, it's also the relationship that I have with that kid. So some kids need to be, you know, they need to talk shit to you, like, you know, to get going. Like when it's in the weight room, like, oh, you can't, there's no way you're doing that weight, just take it off. Like, I know you're not that guy today, you know, like just letting them know that, you know, you could talk it too. And sometimes that's motivating for them. Exactly, they're like, you know what, I'm going to show him. Yeah. I got this, back up, like watch.
I can lift that single leg.
You know, and then they do it and you're like, okay, that was pretty cool. But some people are just like nervous. Like, I mean, I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, blah. And that's when you get in their face and you're like, hey, like for 4 weeks we've been doing this and you've been crushing it. Like you get under that bar and you do it. And they can do it, and you know, sometimes it goes like that, sometimes it doesn't. Like knowing the person, knowing the relationship that you have.
Different.
Everyone's different, and you can't. There's not one way to do it, and there's not one way to coach every kid. So making sure that, you know, your coaching style fits the athlete, but also like helps the athlete.
Yeah, and might have a big difference as well for college athletes versus high school athletes too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with some of those high-level athletes, they've come from a place where they have a lot of exposure to a lot of multiple things, you know, so like different trainers, different coaches, stuff like that. So they get a lot of information, where some kids that don't go to a high school or don't have as much recruiting behind them, they don't have all that exposure, so they don't know all this information. So that works into it.
Yeah. And I know that you're not a psychologist, but as a coach, that plays a huge role, right, as we're talking. When you're addressing, you know, the psychological and emotional aspects of training and competition, how does that work, you know, with these athletes?
Say that again.
So let's say we just talked about the you know, everyone is different.
Yep.
Right. But then you have the psychological and emotional.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So I actually enjoyed like sports psychology in college. I took 2 classes and I was like, this is awesome, because it really pertains to like what's going on in between the ears. So from that aspect, it depends on like what we're training. Like if we're in the weight room, there's a psychological aspect of like, you know, kind of being hype and kind of like, you know, kind of being tough, especially when it comes to like a football weight room. Like the psychology of that is like, you have to teach them to be a dog, right? Like you're going to get.
So you as a coach need to adapt to the environment as well.
Because if we're going outside and we're doing a speed training workout, you don't need to be very high strung and hype. You need to be kind of calm and settled and relaxed, because I need you to run relaxed. I need you to focus on 3 things while you're running. You know, the first 3 steps, what we're trying to accomplish in however many yards, and then running straight up and down, like being tall when you run. So when we're running, I need you to be patient, calm, relaxed, because there's a lot of rest time. If we run 40 yards, you're going to get a 2.5 minute rest, right? If we're running at maximal speed, you have to have that recovery. Otherwise you're not training speed. If you don't allow the body to recoup to 100%.
Right.
But to talk on that psychology, like there's different days on the field. Like yesterday I was training the tight ends and we were doing some more grappling stuff, some wrestling, like, because my background is in wrestling. I'm from Iowa, so I wrestled. And so I played tight end in college, and I kind of understand what the needs of being a tight end are. And so blocking is big. So if you can't be aggressive and violent at attack, then you're probably not going to be a good run blocker, or you're not going to be valuable for us. So learning how to stay in position, good leverage, and that psychology there is like, I want you to get down and dirty. Like I don't want you to think about anything but controlled aggression. Like I want you to go out there and think that you're going to kill this.
And are you also pumping them up as well at that point?
In a time, like I'm spitting out like little cues that they need to keep in their head, but at the same time, it's like go, go, go. It's a live rep. There's not much that you can coach during that time because it's live. It's all reactive, you know. So at that point I'm just like yelling and screaming, you know, just being me, having fun. If it's a moment like that, I'm having fun, and I'm like yelling and screaming, and I'm trying to get dirty, and we're sweating and stuff like that.
And they all receive that well. They
do, but I always give them that. I always tell them, I want your feedback. If you don't like it, or if you don't think it's going to help your game,
tell me.
I need to know so I can adjust to it. But if they like it and they're aggressive towards it, then I get to be the type of coach that I enjoy being, like hype and yelling and screaming and doing that traditional strength coach stuff. So if it's in that situation, it's my psychology goes straight to we got to be a little bit psychotic. We got have a little bit of blood in our eyes, right? Like a controlled aggression. When the whistle blows, you are trying to defeat someone across from you. But as soon as I stop the drill, we're brothers again, and you have to be able to do that mentally. You have to be able to keep your brother safe on the field and make sure that we are not injuring them and we're getting good training out of it. But you have to go into this headspace that when that whistle blows, nobody's my friend, right? And I have to get the job done, what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think we do a good job of that right now because I've kind of burned that in their brain, like, hey, when I stop the drill, it is done. It's done. Exactly. We shake hands and we're done. And then we can go to a different aspect. Like they'll go and run routes. From there, I don't talk because I can't teach them how to run routes. I can if I can get better at like being with coaches and learning how they teach the routes. But at that point, it's on them to know the details and do it right. And that psychology goes into like the calm, the quiet, and trying to teach them, you got to flush everything out of your head and focus on what we're doing here. And it's not one of those hype situations. I'm very quiet at that point. I'm off to the sideline just kind of watching. Like if they do something wrong or if they don't know what's going on, I try and give my input. But at that point, it's very relaxed. And then you may go in the weight room, it may change a little bit. So just kind of playing with the waves of the training day. You can't always be up and you can't always be down. You got to have a good, and a lot of good coaches have taught me that. Everyone that's came through and mentored me has always told me, you have to be able to ride a wave of emotion, especially with some of these athletes or during the day or just throughout the months, So the sports psychology part plays a big role in it. And we have an assistant strength coach who's been in the game for over 25 years, very, very smart. He actually got, I think, his master's or bachelor's degree in sports psychology, or psychology for that matter. And he does an awesome job of just like getting to the kids that you would never think.
Certain ways.
He's from Ohio. He's a white guy, old white guy, very traditional strength coach. But he can reach out to the kids from Compton and Inglewood and like just to have very different backgrounds. He is so good at like reaching out and connecting to those kids, and they trust him very, very well. And that's one coach that I look up to because it's like, I want to be that. I want to be the guy that, you can go into his office and talk to him about anything, life in general. But when it's on the field or in the weight room, he's very assertive, very about his business, and he's very technical.
It's important. You become more rounded as well as a coach, as a strength training, a strength and conditioning coach, if you know that aspect of the coaching too. Your experience, kind of changing subjects a little bit, your experience with injured athletes. Mm-hmm. Let's say someone just, tore their ACL. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you stop strength training them, or that does?
Not at all.
Not at all, right?
It actually goes more into an emphasis of strength training.
How do you modify? Let's say they had their strength training set up before the injury, so now they tore ACL or whatever,
So actually I work firsthand with our injury guys. I've worked 2 years doing the return to play process, and I still do it. I just have a little bit more of a role of working with a group during training now. We understand that when you get injured, you can lose muscle mass, right? And that's what we want to avoid. We want to get that joint moving as soon as possible and with a pain-free range of motion. Mm-hmm. So let's say you get a shoulder injury and you can only raise it to here. let's race it to here as much as we can. Awesome. Break that scar tissue up, get new blood flow in there, because when you do get new blood flow, that aids the recovery process, right? So
a lot of people, they think differently though.
Right.
They pause and stop everything and they keep their arm right here.
Right, because they're scared, and because the doctor will tell you, like, don't move it for this amount of time. Well, sometimes they're telling you that because it's general population. Sometimes athletes heal faster. Normally, athletes heal faster than general population because you're trained, right? And you know what it takes to recover because you've probably been injured before, you've had a boo-boo, and you know what the process is to get back to health. So athletes will recover faster because either they're better with their nutrition, their sleep, and their training, or they've just trained before so their body naturally recovers better. So for us, it's about getting that limb moving, but also not neglecting the other side.
That's what I was going to ask.
So if you have a leg injury, let's say you tore your ACL, you need to make sure that you're working that opposite leg just as much, if not more, because your body doesn't stop sending signals to the right leg just because you're not using it. So you can receive up to it's 30% of what your leg, the little leg that you're using will get. You won't lose as much size in that leg because of atrophy, right? Because the muscle isn't being used. But it can still receive some of that if you train this leg. And that helps it recover faster because you're still using the opposite side.
Stimulating.
You're still stimulating that leg.
Yeah.
So that's one way we get our guys to get back on the field. Now, I wouldn't say sooner, but at a faster pace, and they recover better. And we don't have them in year two. When we get done with an athlete and their return to sport, we expect them to never come back, right? Unless some wild stuff happens. Just the demands of the game happen, and you're not going to control all injuries.
Right.
That's impossible, and it's crazy to think that you can. But what you want is you want to help these kids and make sure that they are the healthiest that they can be going back into sport, especially with the return to play. And it's tough because knowing what I know now, I hated that I had an ACL and I didn't know all that information, right? Because I didn't move my leg for 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn to the bone. My girlfriend will tell you that. I didn't move my leg, and
because they told you to.
I'm so naive,
Right.
And
you didn't have the information. You didn't have the knowledge
that you have. If I would do it over
now.
again, I'd be squatting after a month.
Right, pressing. I
would be doing something with that knee after a month or two, and I'm not saying go out and do it because that can be a little negligent or something like that. You need to do it to your own limitations, right?
And talk to the person you're seeing as well. Yes. If you're seeing a physical therapist, talk to them too. They might tell you, hey, you can actually be moving a little bit more than you are.
And you don't need to take it to an extreme of I feel good today, let's go out and run. No. You still have to have some discipline and be like, okay, I feel good today. Let's see where I can take it, right? Let's push it to my limits, but let's not go crazy. And that's what you need to be smart about. Don't get thrown to the fire without being tested first and making sure that you're ready to play. Because what's worse than going through all that recovery, having to do it again? I went to physical therapy for 6 months, and I wanted to kill my physical therapist because he whooped my ass. He put me through the ringer, dude. But guess what? I came out the other side smiling, and I've never had a problem with my knee. I tore my meniscus again when I was playing football, but I didn't have the major injury.
Right, it was a meniscus, much easier than an ACL.
Easier process, and so knowing that information, I'm like, geez, man, I would have done it so much different. But the spot that I'm in, I can tell those kids hey, I didn't move my knee for 6 months. I'm great, but here's why I want you to move it before then.
Yeah. And now you have the experience that has happened to you and the knowledge too. Yes. So I hope they listen to you and trust you on that too. Because with me it was the same thing. It wasn't just once. I did twice the same knee. Yeah. And if I knew the things I know now, it would have been completely different. Yeah. Probably we wouldn't have gotten hurt. That's the
reality of it.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah. Cody, we're getting to an end. to the interview, and
Dang.
yeah, right? It's
Already.
quick. It's quick. We always ask this question to every single guest. Tell us a game changer moment in your life and why.
Ooh. I don't think there's just one.
You can go crazy. Tell 1, 2,
I
3.
will. There's so many. I mean, as just a young athlete, just trying to either make it or just trying to be the best that you can be, there's so many setbacks. Like, my knee was probably the biggest one when I was really young, because I felt like I was in a good place to, maybe get a scholarship for college. It was my junior year. I was a quarterback. We were ranked like number 3 in the state. It was homecoming, and my team actually went undefeated till the last game of the season, and we lost in the playoffs. But like, at that point, I was like, I've never been sidelined, and I've never watched my teammates perform without me out there. And I think that was kind of a game changer moment, because I'm like, I never want to be sitting on the sideline again. And at that same time, looking back, when I was like going through strength and conditioning, I'm like, I never want one of my athletes to
go through the same thing.
Go through that same thing, or just feel that, because I felt like a year of my high school was taken away, and that was my favorite sport as far as like winning goes. Like, I was way better at baseball, but we just didn't win, so it wasn't enjoyable. And like, our football team had, it turned it around, and I got to the point where I was like, we're doing really good, and we got a shot here. And when that happened, I was like, wow, I have a lot of work to do. And I think that was a game-changing moment, because I went to physical therapy with 2 or 3 of the same guys that had knee injuries, and they bowed out, after 3 or 4 months, because it was too tough. And at that point, I'm like, nothing's gonna break me, and I'm gonna, because in Iowa, we wrestle, right? Like, that's our biggest thing, is wrestling. And so like, there's a mentality when you become a wrestler, like, especially when it's one-on-one, and it's a very aggressive sport. You have to have the right mind frame for it. And growing up, I wasn't like that. I was very soft. Like, I was very intimidated by a lot, but I was good at wrestling, right? And the greatest thing for me was, this was probably a game changer too, honestly. Now just thinking back on it, was like, my mentality, if I didn't wrestle, I would be very soft. I would be like, oh gosh, this is hard, I want to quit, like, and then I'd quit. But when it came to wrestling, like, your coaches were so tough on you, because they knew that it was such a battle when you got out there mano a mano, just one-on-one, that they had to put you in a different state of mind. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I kind of like look at it as like military, like, they had to beat you down.
Find a way.
And like, practices were not easy. It was 90 degrees in there. You're wearing
sweat.
It goes
back to the mental strength,
right,
too.
You're wearing sweats and a sweatshirt in 90-degree weather, and I wrestled one of my best friends, and he was a great wrestler, and he was like 20 pounds heavier than me, and he whooped my ass, right? And that's every practice. Hey, you go to school for 8 hours, and you come to the wrestling room, and you're gonna get your ass kicked for 2 more. So you're like, you gotta grind. And I think that was one of the things that was a game changer to me, was like, it was my mental aspect. It was, you're just not gonna break me. And I proved that when I went to college. We had some of these like freshman Fridays when I first went there, and I would beat some of the guys that were either stronger than me or bigger than me or like faster than me. I would beat them in certain things, and it was just because of my mental aspect. It wasn't because I was better. It wasn't because I was stronger. It was just because the will to not quit was so deep in me that like, you were gonna bow out before me. And that's what's awesome, because you find guys that are like that, and then you kind of grow together as teammates and stuff like that, or you find coaches that are like that, and you grow as coaches. And for me, that was such a game changer, because it's got me to the point where I am today. Like, just the no quit mentality, or like the you're not gonna break me mentality, that has gotten me to this point. Like,
that's cool. Going
out and get what I want, like that. Because I was never that kid. I was always introverted. I never wanted to, like, I don't like talking to people. I don't like going in crowds. I don't like all that stuff. But the mentality that was set was just, that's my foundation. That's what I fall back on. And,
cool.
Like, the stereotype of Iowa people were just hardworking farmers, right? So that meant, like, just where I'm from, it's like, I'm from a town of 300 people. You had to make your own. It wasn't like a big city and you're kind of in the projects or something like that. I didn't get it out the mud like that, but like, where I'm from, you didn't have a lot of resources. Like there was 300 people in my town, and you know, 200 of them were over 40. You know, so like I didn't have any classmates in my town, so it was me and my brother. And like, if I wanted to do something, it was either I had to get my brother to come outside with me, or you know, I made my own fun. So like the training aspect or just working like on the farm, that's just what it was. Like you didn't stay inside, you worked.
That's
like,
beautiful. That's crazy.
That was, and that like, I have to give kudos to my parents because that's how they raised me, you know. And I'm very fortunate to have 2 parents that are married, like still in my life, and just the foundation that they set was such a game changer for me because that made me who I was. And you know, I owe everything to my family for that, and just making me the man that I am. But the game changer that took it like after college was just, you know, stepping up and wanting to do an internship, you know, 18 hours away. And I had moved to college and I kind of got homesick, and I tried a different school that was a little bit closer. So me going to Connecticut and taking an internship was very huge for me, and going out there and doing my best and trying to excel and getting good references and networking, stuff like that. That was a game changer to me because it opened my eyes up to like, I'm gonna have to do this stuff on my own. Like I'm gonna have to move on my own and go away on my own, and really have to grow as an adult and learn how to do that. And that was a game changer for me because I didn't want to do that, you know, but understanding that that's what I have to do to be where I am today. Like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be in the position that I am, and I wouldn't be the coach that I am because of that. And so that's a game changer to me. And sometimes like, I think that's a great question because game changers, they don't have to be like, they're important, but it's not like, you don't see it, you know, until we're sitting here talking, you know, like to me, it like, I don't fall back in my wrestling mentality and think that that's who I am, you know, but instinctively, like, that's just who I am. Like when we get out there on the field, it's, you know, F you, like I'm gonna get you today, like stuff like that. But that's my mentality. That's what I always fall back. That was my game changer, you know. But that doesn't dawn on me until we sit here and talk about it. So it's like my knee. That's always been a game changer to me. That's always in the back of my head, like, oh, that's kind of who made me who I am. But like looking back on it, like not everything has to be a massive game changer. You know, it can be a little key.
Yeah, that pushed you a little bit forward.
That pushed you to the progress that you're making today. Because I mean, man, I had some internships with coaches that would, you know, cuss at you in front of players, you know, coaches that would just demean you in front of players. And that's tough. As an ex-athlete, like you kind of understand it because you've been yelled at by coaches. But as like an adult, you're like, how do I deal with this? Like, I didn't know that they can just cuss me out and call me every word in the book and go home to their wife and kids and be cool with it, you know? Right. And I was like, okay, how do I deal with this? And that, in some respects, that's a game changer to me as well. Like being able to adjust to every staff. Like every strength coach is different. They could be nice, could be mean, could be.
It's not just, you know, adapting to the athletes that you have. You adapt to the staff around you as well.
Because to collaborate and be the best team that you can be, you kind of have to.
You can learn something from anyone.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn. Yeah, that's a great point because I learned more from the coaches that treated me bad than I really did from the coaches that treated me good.
And you learn what not to do as well.
100%.
There's that too.
Yeah, you learn a lot of what not to do or how I would do it better in certain situations. So there's a lot of game changers in my life that have just been either small or like really big, and it's kind of cool to look back on because I don't. Like, truthfully, you don't really get the time to like look back, and I'm still pretty young yet, especially in my career. And I really haven't looked back and like really appreciated some of the stones that you have to step over to get to the point where you are. And
that's awesome.
I'm really appreciative towards the mentors and coaches that have been along the way because either they push you or they motivate you to be a different person in a different way. Either they're a good coach or they're a bad coach, and they motivate you to be the opposite or, you know, better in that retrospect. But
cool.
I owe a lot to my mentors because I wouldn't be here without them, and even the ones that are still coaching me today. Like it's great to reach out to them and see how they're doing and see where their process has been. So it's been fun.
Cool, man. Hey, it's been a pleasure. Can you tell the audience where they can find you, the easiest way, you know, social media platforms and stuff like that.
I do have I have Twitter and Instagram. My Instagram is at @aboywiz. It was my Twitter handle since high school, so I just kept it. I just roll with it. And then Twitter, I think it's just Cody Williams. I don't even know my @name for that thing. I've changed that Twitter so many times during college, but
we'll check you out.
Yeah, they're definitely on there. I don't post a lot on Twitter, but I will put a lot of like what we're doing in the weight room on my stories. I put some of the grappling stuff that we did yesterday. I put that on my.
We watched that one.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. Like it's cool to watch some of those guys compete. That's for sure. But that's where you can find me. Facebook, I really don't use. I only use it for birthdays. So, and I'm not on TikTok. I don't make no TikToks.
Cool. All right, man. Hey, thank you
Appreciate
so much.
you.
Real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, for real.
Thanks for being part of this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please help us out. Subscribe down below and also like the video as well. I hope to catch you soon. Have a good one.